Joining us now is a former U.S. Congressman, former Republican Congressman, and friend of the program, Denver Riggleman. He is now CEO of RIIG Technologies. And let me tell you, Carol, there's no such thing as a boring interview with Denver. It's good to see you on a Saturday morning, my friend. And thank you for coming on the program. You've spent a lot of time in Ukraine. You joined us from Odessa. We talked when you were in a bomb shelter. Can you imagine that was a year ago? Denver, this is the war the president was going to end on day one, and some are wondering if it will last longer than the war with Iran. What do you think?
I think it will. I mean, if you're looking at this, what's interesting, it's so funny, Joe, I was in Odessa in a bunker, and the August 15th one-year anniversary today of the Putin-Trump summit in Anchorage was only 10 weeks after Operation Spiderweb. And I think a lot of people failed to actually put that together, is that Trump gave Putin a lot of legitimacy after what a lot of people thought with Operation Spiderweb was really the first time we saw that Ukraine could actually win the war. And I think at that point, instead of the U.S. capitulating to Putin, they probably should have, and I would have if I was POTUS, I would have been funding Ukraine at a much higher level, seeing what's happening with what's going on with Russia, specifically their economy, and what Ukraine can do with drones. So it's incredible to me that a lot of people might have expected something to come out of this summit. But if we look at past performance as indicative of future performance, Trump, even up to that time on August 15th, hadn't done really anything against Putin except lip service. And again, when you're a year on, we're in the same exact position. We got a stalemate really with drone warfare between Ukraine and Russia. And people can try to, on each side of the problem set, say, oh, Russia has the advantage, Ukraine has the advantage. But sadly, we're in a position where you have somebody like Putin, a dictator, really a murderous thug, right, that was given legitimacy by the United States. And I think we're going to look back on that really with disdain, but also history will judge it pretty harshly.
Congressman, I do wonder, too, there are times that President Trump is certainly critical of President Putin as well. What is your read in terms of how President Trump really sees President Putin? Is it friend or foe?
I think it depends on what. And I hate to be so blunt on this, Carol. I think it actually depends on the financial incentive that Trump has at that particular time. If you look at Ukraine now, and you see sort of a thawing or a warming with Trump and Zelensky or Trump and Ukraine, or you don't see quite as harsh rhetoric. When you're looking at drone warfare, you see a major portion of Trump's family is invested in drone programs. If you're looking at Power Us, if you're looking at Usual Machines, you're looking at Extend drones. You're also looking at Vulcan Elements, right? Some of those that are actually attached to drone warfare or drone production. I think what you're seeing is that since you do have the Trump family and associates and defense contractors interacting that way, I think that's why you're seeing some of the thawing there, Carol, when you're talking about Trump going after Putin a bit and also seemingly starting to warm towards Ukraine.
They always say follow the money.
That's exactly right. I want to tap an area of expertise in Denver Riggleman. Before he was a member of Congress, he was in the Air Force and spent many years as an Air Force intelligence officer, which brings us to a story that caught our attention this week. Congressman, the White House out with a memo around heightening cyber attacks against our adversaries abroad by actually tapping private enterprise. I'm looking at the presidential memoranda right now, expanding capabilities to combat transnational cyber-enabled crime. We're going on the offense. Denver, is the U.S. currently engaged in cyber wars that the public is not seeing?
Well, not only was I Air Force intelligence, Joe and Carol, as you know, I also worked in NSA off and on for 16 years. I was actually billeted in it's called a 4,000 billeted NSA as an Air Force officer, where I did operations not only with, I would say, acquisitions, but also with operations. So I did this specific job. I can't tell you the 3-letter and 4-letter organizations inside of NSA that actually conducted these operations. But of course, we've engaged in offensive cyber operations at some time in our past, right, Joe and Carol? I think what we're seeing right now, though, it's one of the most dangerous things I've ever seen, because with the DOJ and DHS in charge, instead of the intelligence community doing deconfliction against state actors, I would humbly submit you're seeing leaders that are woefully unprepared. If you're looking at Mark, Wayne, Mullen, and Blanche, woefully unprepared for this type of mission to allow literally digital letters of marque for corporations, right, to attack entities with a presumption that they're not state actors. I think people need to read the presidential memorandum. Wow. You have to have authorities and certifications. You have to look at intelligence gain loss. What are you actually gaining? Or is it a one-time attack? What are you giving to those who are attacking you that can see your attack vectors and modalities? Wow. And also, the thing that really bothers me, Joe and Carol, is this. Right, who's benefiting? Right now you have private contractors that are incentivized to identify targets to make more money with the private companies they're engaging with. And who are those companies backed by? And by the way, are there U.S. entities that will be identified in some conspiratorial notion that they're being backed by the globalist government or foreign entities, which now you're looking at bizarre conspiracy theories of stolen elections and foreign entities that are somehow in every single portion of the government or in corporations. So this is probably, since we've started, one of the most short-sighted and maybe one of the most devastating things when it comes to cyber warfare and cyber defense.
Wow. Another sobering thing on this Saturday morning, to be quite honest. What's the danger? Let's go there, Congressman. What's the worst outcome we could see as a result of something like this?
You know, when you're talking about a private corporation, and listen, private corporations should be sharing in some sense how they're being attacked, right? You're looking at, oh goodness, there's so many things that I want to, but you're looking at managing the risk based on sharing how your networks are being targeted. But if you have private corporations, there's a presumption that a group targeting them is not a state actor without real intelligence to identify that. My biggest fear is some private corporation with massive resources. You know, I was fortunate to be able to visit JP Morgan's Chase Operations Center when I was in Congress, which was as robust, if not more, than some of the intelligence monitoring centers that we have. But if you have private corporations able to engage in this and they're going through a non-talented intelligence framework where they're getting sort of the go-ahead to do certain things, my goodness, what if they hit infrastructure for another country, Carol? What if, we don't know what those downstream effects are if you don't have proper intelligence to frame the battle space. If you don't know all of the alternate, what they call target modalities, which is how many downstream effects are there for that specific attack? And does that attack expose our capabilities, which can be used against us in the future? And again, that's why this bothers me so much as an intelligence professional.
Wow. Okay, so add AI now.
Yeah.
As another bit of gasoline on the fire. And I'll just mention the fact that Denver is running an AI company now. This has changed the game for cyber warfare and for cyber security, Denver. We're watching CrowdStrike and Palo hit a new high, it seems like, every day. How is AI changing the nature and capabilities of what the government is asking these private companies to do?
You know, when you're looking at things like things called polymorphic threats, we look at the ability to AI to be utilized in a way that's much faster and sometimes much more effective than human-specific hacking efforts or penetration efforts. I think what we have now is you're literally creating a massive new market where even companies like mine, if we're building any type of capability, we got to worry about every single cybersecurity. You should anyway. But I do think it creates a brand new market in cybersecurity companies defensively and offensively based on the efficacy of AI, but also on how these threats are actually viewed. You're going to have consulting classes, new companies. You're going to have the U.S. is going to have to increase their spending on cyber defense and cyber offense. I mean, all of this is going to happen. And in some ways, it's interesting. You wonder that with this type of craziness will come massive, again, innovation, but also massive business lines. So again, who benefits from this? It's hard for me to get my arms around the fact that we're just not increasing resources to the IC, the intelligence community, for this problem set, and increasing integration and operations with private companies, which was something I actually begged for 10 years ago. So that's what's incredible about this. Even in Congress on the Financial Services Committee with McHenry, Joe and Carol, and he was the committee chair, or he was the ranker. Yep. We were talking about how do we actually, and that's why we went and visited with JP Morgan Chase, is how do we actually integrate all of this where private companies are sharing information? That's a good thing. We have good things that maybe are good intentions, but when the policy is written by people who don't understand the downstream effects of this because they don't have the talent to do that, now you have this issue where it might even be good intentioned, but it doesn't have the right effect because you don't have the right people writing this type of policy. So that's where I think we're going with all this. I think we're in just a very bizarre dynamic, but also maybe very short-sighted policy change here that's just hard for any real intelligence professional to get their arms around. Just up the frickin' funding, you know, for the IC and for operations integration. Why are we letting DHS and DOJ making choices that could actually affect NSA and CIA operations overseas, or have state actors look at us as somebody to attack even more because we're irresponsible in how we're utilizing those capabilities?
Congressman, you talk about sharing of information. President Trump wants to share information at a cost. Get his tweets earlier than the rest.
You see what it costs?
Yeah, $60,000, $100,000 for just microseconds faster of access. Hey, listen, hedge funds, if it's microseconds, that's real money. I'm not saying hedge funds are doing it, or paying
some
up.
are.
Well, right?
So in some news organizations?
Yes. Right? So what do you make of this? You were a politician before you re-entered private life. Is this legal in a world where I feel like every day we're asking, when it comes to certain moves, either out of the White House or the administration, whether or not this is legal? So love your take on this.
I think once you start codifying insider trading and actually saying, hey, if you're rich, you're going to do a lot better than everybody else in the U.S., I think that would be a pretty powerful messaging statement for anybody running against Trump or anybody that who's attached to him. That's how I think a lot of people would view it. I mean, already, if you look at Congress, I was there. I was on the Financial Services Committee. People can look at, there's no way I'm doing stock trading or anything like that if I'm in Congress. To me, that was just, it's hard to explain, Joe and Carol. It felt so grotesque to me with the knowledge that I had on the Financial Services Committee that I would leverage that, right, to make myself more wealthy, right? And I think what you're looking at right now is companies are going to jump all over this if they have the financial means to do so. But when you talk about the people around me, we own whiskey distilleries, I talk to them. There's nobody there who's going to be paying $100,000 to get True Social posts first so they can engage in trading at speed to maximize what they're making based on tips that you already have. But I'm going to bring up something else. I think that might surprise people. That it's already happened. If they're paying for a post before it happens, he's already thought about the post, and the people who already have benefited from it are benefiting before the post even hits, or you're paying for it beforehand.
Wow.
And so it's almost this downstream effect. You have the people who are really the insiders doing best. Yeah. Second are the people who pay for this pre-post so they can do a little bit better. And third are the people trying to react to it after the fact. I mean, I think there's three tiers here, with the first tier being the person who's actually getting paid, which is the president himself through his own companies. Now he's benefiting not only on the True Social posts he's being paid for, but three specific tiers of trading with individuals who are already aware of what's happening anyhow.
So you're subscribing, right, Denver?
What's that, buddy?
You're subscribing, right?
Yeah, I've already got, I'm all over it, man. I'm spending $1 million a day.
Yeah, right. Well, it's interesting too, Carol, because if you look, we follow the Truth Social, it's maybe 1 out of 50 might actually be market moving. There was a lot of AI splashing around last night.